Scammers on the move. How to tell when professional movers are pulling a fast one on you. In today's cover story, blocked. The merger between U.S. Airways and American Airlines is stopped short by the government. And with his wild days behind him, how a punk rock star is helping entrepreneurs sing a new tune. Plus, a roller coaster of a stock, why investors are on a high over JCPenney. First Business starts now.
You're watching First Business, financial news, analysis, and today's investment ideas.
Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, August 14th. I'm Angela Miles. In today's first look, stocks on the rise for the second session in a row. Apple shares headed higher on word billionaire Kyle Icahn has taken a large stake in the company. The rest of the market rallied as well on comments from a Fed president. The economy is still too uneven to end the Fed's bond buying program. Gold gave up $13. Oil pushed up 40 cents. A SeaWorld nosedive. The stock fell 12% on disappointment from its first earnings report since its IPO in April. The company missed on revenue and reduced its outlook because of lower attendance at its theme parks. And BP is suing the government. The oil giant claims it was barred from obtaining new federal contracts after pleading guilty to the oil spill in the Gulf in 2010. Larry Schober of SFG Alternatives joins us on this Wednesday morning. Here we are half the way through the week. Larry, retail numbers under our belts. Will the retail numbers that came out yesterday and were strong, will it matter to the market today?
You know, I think it will matter because it's just showing us that we are healing. We're going in the right direction. And all along, it seems like the consumer has not been present. Finally, they're back. They've done a great job at deleveraging, at paying off debt. Now they're spending again. So it's great for our economy.
What about the inflation numbers out today? What markets could that move?
Well, that's interesting because the inflation number, I mean, we don't want it too hot. We don't want it too cold. We want it right as expected. If anything, maybe hotter than expected. It would be better for the markets. But I think everybody wants things to be nice and quiet.
And what do you think about some of this money that's going into technology? Carl Icahn yesterday taking out a big stake, or at least alerting us that he really owns a lot of Apple here. What do you think?
Well, you know, it's been a sigh of relief for me and for traders all around because technology really has not joined in the rally. And especially when we saw what would happen to Apple. Good company, a great company, a lot of cash. Finally, we have a big elephant realizing what a good company is and buying it. So we're all like a big sigh of relief.
Are there any other tech stocks you would consider buying?
Well, I still like Yahoo. I know it's a cheap stock. It's got a long way to go, but I think Marissa Mayer has done a great job and she'll continue to do a good job. That might be a diamond in the rough.
Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
In our cover story, American Airlines merger with U.S. Airways hit some turbulence, and at least for now, the deal's in a holding pattern. Airline stocks tanked as a result of the Justice Department saying it's stepping in on behalf of consumers. The Justice Department filed an antitrust lawsuit blocking the $11 billion merger that would combine American and U.S. Airways into the world's largest airline. In statements and with the support of 6 state attorneys general, including those in Texas and Arizona, where the respective airlines are headquartered, the feds say the transaction would result in consumers paying the price in higher airfares, higher fees, and fewer choices.
The DOJ is going to gain some credibility as a protector of consumers. But I think at the end of the day, what this probably does is it hurts the airlines themselves and may result in fewer choices for consumers.
In a joint statement, American and U.S. Airways said, "We will fight them. Our proposed merger is the best path forward for both airlines and all of our stakeholders."
The doomsday of monopolization never seems to occur, but in this case, there are real issues here to trade off.
In Washington, D.C., a combined American-U.S. Airways would control 69% of the limited takeoff and landing slots there. And along with a string of recent mergers that has reduced the overall number of airlines, a combined American-U.S. Airways would leave 4 airlines with 80% of the U.S. commercial air travel market. But not everyone fears fewer choices.
This is a brutally competitive business. They will continue to compete on price post-merger just as they do today.
Airline stocks fell on the Justice Department's action. American's parent company, AMR, lost 45%. U.S. Airways, 13%, followed by losses at United Continental, Delta, Southwest, and JetBlue. The Justice Department did not specify concessions that the airlines might make. However, the deal is no longer expected to close in the third quarter.
Asiana Airlines is offering $10,000 to survivors of a crash landing last month. The crash killed 3 people and injured hundreds after failing to land properly on a San Francisco runway. Undisclosed payouts have been given to family members of those who were killed. An Asiana spokesperson says the money is not a settlement and does not prevent passengers from filing lawsuits against the airline.
President Obama hits the road next week to conjure up support for middle-class jobs. The 2-day bus tour includes stops in New York and Pennsylvania. The president wants Congress to consider cutting the corporate tax rate. More details are expected later this week. The road trip comes before the October 1st deadline for Congress to pass a bill funding the government for the next fiscal year and the deadline for raising the debt ceiling.
Some insurance companies will wait until 2015 to start health care reform. The law goes into effect in 2014, but the New York Times reports the Obama administration is delaying a portion of the law that limits how much money Americans will have to spend on medical costs. The law caps out-of-pocket expenses at $6,350 for individuals and $12,700 for a family. Under a 1-year grace period that's been listed on this government website for quite some time now, people with cancer or chronic illness could face another year of high medical bills. An attorney representing benefit management for Fortune 500 companies doubts it spells the end of Obamacare.
I don't think that there's reason to be discouraged. We see this as just needing some additional time to make some operational changes.
Healthcare rules that do go into effect next year include no denials of healthcare coverage, no higher premiums due to pre-existing conditions, and some subsidies will be available.
New revelations are causing Herbalife shares to slide. The stock fell nearly 2.5% yesterday following a report from the New York Times detailing concerns over alleged metal contamination of a drink mix dating back to 2011. While the company contends that the products are safe, New York's Attorney General has subpoenaed a former Herbalife employee. The Times states that activist investor Bill Ackman has been holding meetings with the New York AG's office to spur the action. Ackman famously shorted Herbalife stock after contending that the company was a pyramid scheme.
The New York Attorney General is cracking down on internet lending companies. The AG is suing Western Sky Financial, Cash Call, and WS Funding, with charging interest rates well above the state's rate of 16%, from 89% to 355%, racking up $185 million in finance charges.
The latest data shows Americans continue to dig their way out of debt. The rate of credit card payments 90 days overdue fell to 0.57%. That's the lowest level since 1994. Credit reporting agency TransUnion, which provided the information, predicts that the lower rate of delinquent credit card payments will continue in the near term.
Bill Ackman is out. The activist investor is leaving the board of JCPenney. The stock initially spiked, then closed down 3%. In a statement, Ackman says, "I believe that the addition of 2 new directors and my stepping down from the board is the most constructive way forward for JCPenney and all other parties involved." It follows Ackman's string of public criticism regarding Penney, including calling for its chairman to leave the board. Sapna Maheshwari, a reporter for BuzzFeed Business, says her sources predict Ackman's departure may stabilize the stock.
When Bill Ackman decided to take matters into his own hands, release this letter to the media, 2 letters, go behind the board's back, it was this external force that really moved the stock one way or the other. And when you take away the risk of that, this analyst said maybe it'll be actually a more stable investment.
Maheshwari adds investors will be closely watching for progress. The company reports earnings next Tuesday.
Investors could get a better look at the books of publicly traded companies under a new proposal. The Public Company Accounting Oversight Board wants to require auditors to reveal more details about companies so that investors don't lose money in companies that go belly up. It would end the old pass-fail grading system that went into effect 70 years ago, something investor groups call rubber stamping. Public companies, however, say management, not auditors, should disclose the additional information.
This week's largest IPO is set to debut on Wall Street today. Envision, a company providing hospital staffing and ambulance services to healthcare centers, will trade on the New York Stock Exchange under ticker EVCH. Shares priced in at $23. The deal should raise around $800 million. Another IPO worth watching, Third Point Reinsurance. It's a Bermuda-based property and casualty reinsurance business managed by Dan Loeb, who runs the Third Point Hedge Fund. It will trade under the ticker ticker symbol TPRE. The stock will price around $13.
Tough job interview? It could have been worse, according to a survey. According to Glassdoor's 25 most difficult companies to interview report, consulting firm McKinsey & Company asked the hardest questions. It's followed by ThoughtWorks, Boston Consulting Group, Gartner, Bain & Company, and Rolls-Royce. Google, known for tricky questions and brain teasers, is 8th on the list.
LinkedIn comes in as the top social media hookup site for a new job. 100% of job seekers said in a survey by Right Management they use LinkedIn in their search. Hiring managers preferred LinkedIn by 2 to 1 compared to other social media sites. Interviewing candidates via video, such as Skype, is also gaining in popularity, while finding positions in print media is now barely a blip.
Even with women making strides in corporate America, their salaries are still not keeping up with their male counterparts. Only 8% of women who lead S&P 500 companies were considered top earners in 2012. On average, they earned 18% less than men. The Bloomberg study finds women tend to avoid asking for more money due to fear of being labeled as overly aggressive. Problems aren't just plaguing the boardroom either. The U.S. Census Bureau says among full-time workers in the U.S., women make 77 cents for each dollar men make.
Celebrity chef Paula Deen is no longer facing claims of race discrimination. A former restaurant manager accused Deen of using racist remarks and sexual harassment. Deen defended herself in tearful YouTube videos. Now a federal Georgia judge is throwing out the race discrimination claims, but the sexual harassment claims still stand. Deen lost partnerships with the Food Network, Walmart, and her upcoming book was also dropped by the publisher. On to the economic calendar for today. It's the MBA Mortgage Index, PPI, and crude inventories. On the earnings calendar, watch for Cisco, Kohl's, Macy's, Deere & Company, and Lifeway Foods. Still to come is the S&P 500 stock. That's later on in Chart Talk. Plus, a punk rocker takes his skills from the stage to the front of the classroom. But first, it's moving season, and the scammers are rolling in. How to protect your belongings and your wallet. Coming up, First Business continues right after this.
The number of homes on the market is building. For months now, there's been a low inventory of available homes, driving up prices on houses for sale. However, a new report from Realtor.com shows inventories rose 1.4% in June, a sign that the inventory crunch could be winding down.
Whether you are downsizing, moving into a larger home, or packing up for college, it's buyer beware when choosing a moving company. Jeanette Pavini, who writes the Buyer Beware column for MarketWatch.com, is here. Good morning, and how big of a problem is this, Jeanette?
Good morning. Yeah, it is a significant problem. When you consider on average, people move 11 times in their lifetime. And in my years of reporting, I would say it's one of the most common complaints I hear from readers or viewers.
What's going on out there? What are some of the scams?
So I would say two of the most common scams are movers will give you a quote, and it's much lower than it actually turns out to be. And sometimes they'll actually hold your things hostage, believe it or not. They'll come and pick it up, they'll wrap the things, they'll get to the second location, and they won't unload until you agree to pay more. And that has happened so many times. So you want to get everything in writing in advance. And the other thing is they'll pad out by padding your things. In other words, they'll pad your TV or a piece of china or what have you, and then they give you this big bill for padding things for you. So
unbelievable. The government actually has a PSA and a website devoted to this. So how does one tell if it's a legitimate mover or a con artist?
Well, I think the easiest thing, definitely on in my column on Market Watch, I have a bunch of links for you. But it's as easy also as checking with the Better Business Bureau and the Attorney General's office.
What are some of your responsibilities then if you are moving? What do people need to do outside of just checking with some of these places? Is word of mouth, for instance, a good way to go?
Yeah, the old-fashioned word of mouth. I just moved and I got a great mover by a referral from a friend of mine, checked him out. He was clean, good to go. So I think word of mouth is probably the best, but get everything in writing and make sure part of that in writing says you will not go over X amount of dollars no matter what.
Great tips, and thank you so much for the warning, Jeanette.
You got it.
The strategy behind online dating sites is now expanding to roommate matching. A new app called Roommates is currently expanding in major cities. Users disclose a budget and a list of neighborhoods where they'd like to live. The service then matches them with an ideal roomie. Roommates launched in San Francisco, where the average rent for a studio is $2,300 a month. It's now expanding to other high-rent cities: New York, LA, Chicago, and Boston.
Coming up, Trader Insights on why the S&P seems stuck in a rut. But first, how decades on the punk rock scene prepared this musician for his role as a startup teacher. Bill Mahler chimes in after the break.
Reinvention, that really is a hallmark of the entrepreneur. You know, there's kind of the slight reinvention you might go through where a corporate type becomes, say, a web designer, or the radical left turn where a punk rocker might become a teacher. Well, such, in fact, was the journey of one Martin Atkins, who is today chairman of the music department at the SAE Institute, a media education school. And quite a journey it has been, and who would have thought that a punk rocker would have anything to do with education? But you've been teaching for 10 or 11 years.
Yeah, punk rockers are all over business right now. You look at piracy, the pirate's dilemma, everything that's going on.
And what is that? Oh, the stealing of...
Right, and I say free is the new black. You know, when you give your music away, when you give anything away, it's only a problem if the stuff you're giving away is rubbish. If you have great music, great books, or a great product, you give it away to get the leverage in the marketplace.
Right,
it's not a gift, it's an exploding guilt bomb.
That's interesting because it's an iconoclastic idea. It's way out of the mainstream, and that's sort of what you do in the classroom. You take your experience and you use that as sort of a metaphor for how to be an entrepreneur.
Right, and using the music business, it's easy because it's an exciting, cool thing to talk about. It's not guns and butter, it's Jay-Z and Taylor Swift and punk rock and all of the things that go with that.
So there you are, flailing away on your drums. How do you bring what you did as a punk rocker, and still do on occasion, into the classroom and use that as an example for teaching?
Well, I use my stage technique. You know, I'm smoke screening stuff, I'm revealing things behind a curtain, and I'm hopefully running an entertaining class for these students. And I'm bringing business into the classroom and having them work on the things that I'm doing and share my experiences. I take students to South by Southwest every year to sleep on my hotel room floor if necessary, to experience that and work with me.
Very inspiring, I'm sure, for young people. You're an author as well. You've written a book, the title of which we can't put on the screen.
And the book we can.
Yeah, which is more of a traditional tome.
Yeah.
And again, it's part of using your experience to teach.
And also, that's that punk rock DIY, do-it-yourself mindset of what's stopping me. Nothing's stopping anybody from doing anything. You just have to do it and fix and correct as you go. You could probably find a bunch of mistakes in both of my books.
Yeah, but who cares, right?
Right. We'll fix it the next time.
Yeah. Martin Atkins, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Up next, a trader's view on why the S&P can't seem to get back above 1,700. The signals to watch for a potential breakout are next in Chart Talk. Dan Deming of Stellan Equities joins us now. And Dan, good morning. You trade the VIX, which is going along with what's happening with the S&P 500. So perhaps you can tell us, why is the S&P 500 having such a hard time getting over 1,700 once again?
Well, I think, Angie, right now what you're looking at is the S&P and the market in general is looking for a catalyst. We're kind of made it through earnings, and the market's been able to kind of hold on to the gains from the earnings announcements. But it's really looking for a catalyst on kind of really, I think, what the Fed's going to do over the next couple of weeks into the next month. I mean, I think it's kind of staring down the Fed right now and trying to gauge when this tapering might take place. And in the interim, though, the fact of the matter is that, Angie, we've been able to hold 1684 on the downside. We've kind of broke through it, but there's been no close below 1684. For technically this market, there's really hasn't been that much damage.
So there you have a floor in the market, but what will the catalyst be, or what signs do you see in the charts that could lift the S&P 500 higher?
Well, I mean, you're looking at a couple things. Well, yesterday we certainly saw Apple fly higher on Icon's stake in there. And, you know, we're kind of seeing a little bit of repair in some of the areas, like the financials are kind of holding in there as well, starting to build possibly a base as well. I'd like to see the financials break to new high. They've been unable to do that. But nonetheless, Angie, right now, consolidation after that big run-up that we had in July is not a bad thing. And considering the fact that we've only given up about 1%, you have to say overall the market is hanging in there pretty well.
Dan, great to have you on the show this morning. Thank you for your wise words.
Thank you.
The time has come for us to wrap up today's show. Coming up tomorrow, it's Movies and Money with 2 major openings happening this weekend. The Butler, which has been heavily promoted by Oprah Winfrey, and Jobs, the story of Apple innovator Steve Jobs. Our critic will be here with a sneak peek on these potential blockbuster films. From all of us at First Business, we wish you a wonderful Wednesday.